See, when civilization and communal strife were at their peak in Gujarat, Modi came. When the very fabric of society was trembling under the weight of chaos and dissent in Gujarat, there emerged a leader with a vision that resonated with millions of hearts and minds, a leader who charted a path through the tumult by invoking the spirit of renewal and decisive action. Similarly, when civilization and communal strife were at their peak in Uttar Pradesh, Yogi stepped in with a force and determination that transformed the political terrain, carving out a distinct identity for his followers and delivering a message of unity among those who felt marginalized in the wake of sweeping socio-political changes. And when civilization and communal strife were at their peak in Assam, Himanta Biswa Sarma emerged as the catalyst for change. His bold approach and uncompromising stance on identity politics shaking the very foundations of a state grappling with complex demographic shifts and historical grievances. Today, after the passage of the Waqf Bill, West Bengal is once again burning. The flames not only consuming the structures and streets, but also the hopes and dreams of those who dare to envision a society where justice and security are more than just lofty ideals. In these harrowing times, Hindus are being deliberately targeted and displaced, their lives upended by calculated actions that leave communities in disarray. All their homes have been burned, all their shops set on fire, leaving behind memories reduced to ashes and the faint echo of what once was a vibrant neighborhood, a neighborhood now emblematic of a deep-seated crisis that transcends the boundaries of politics into the realm of identity and survival. When all this was happening, there was no police presence, no CRPF or armed forces to restore order, leaving citizens to fend for themselves amidst unremitting violence. Our shops have been destroyed, our families torn apart, and our very dignity challenged as people are entered into their homes with knives and other brutal weapons, and the act of slaughter becomes a tool of intimidation aimed at erasing an entire community's presence from the public space. In the midst of such carnage, one cannot help but ask, what will we do? Where will we go? Tell us, for the very soul of West Bengal is at stake. Today, West Bengal finds itself at the very peak of civilization and communal strife, mirroring the crisis witnessed in Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, and Assam, and the demographic change occurring in West Bengal has now reached levels that are unsustainable and irreversible, making it clear that a drastic course correction is imperative. An interesting point to note is that the demographics of West Bengal are strikingly similar to those of Assam. Despite such unfavorable odds, the political strategy of leaders like Himanta Biswa Sarma in Assam not only secured a decisive electoral victory, but also established a Hindutva government in a state that many presumed would never see such a transformation. Today, there's a pressing discussion about the Himanta doctrine and whether Bengal can produce its own version of Himanta Biswa Sarma before it is too late, before the historical trajectory of violence, displacement, and communal polarization entraps yet another region in a downward spiral. In a moment of candid reflection, I welcome you to this broadcast, and I greet you with a humble pranam while laying bare the intricate and painful reality unfolding before our eyes. Everyone knew that once the Waqf Act was passed, instability would ensue in certain pockets of India, instability that would manifest as violent protests, sectarian clashes, and an erosion of the delicate balance that sustains a pluralistic society. Immediately after the bill's implementation, a multitude of Islamic associations began filing petitions, laying claim to the idea that their heritage, rights, and traditions were under siege. Leaders from Congress and Amim quickly joined this chorus, leveraging legal channels to contest the legislation, while numerous NGOs and self-styled civil rights organizations lent their voices to the resistance. But as expected, it is in West Bengal that the most significant instability and violence have erupted following the enactment of the Waqf Bill. The West Bengal government, in concert with elements of the Muslim community and their leaders, have vociferously declared their intention not to allow the Waqf Amendment Act to be implemented in the state. Mamata Banerjee, with resolute determination, had already signaled that the Waqf Bill was anathema to West Bengal's way of life, unequivocally stating that it would not be enforced here even as the debate rages on across the country. Furthermore, Muslim organizations and clerics, receiving direct instructions and updates from the Chief Minister's office, have bolstered this defiant stance, rallying their followers with promises of resistance and even defiance, ready to sacrifice their own freedom for the preservation of what they believe are sacred rights. Some of these leaders in West Bengal are so resolute in their opposition that they are ready to face imprisonment, willing to endure incarceration if it means upholding their stance against the law. Meanwhile, there are factions within the Muslim community and among their leadership that seem prepared to resort to violence to the extreme of taking lives if circumstances demand, underscoring a deep-seated fanaticism that goes beyond peaceful protest. Mamata's minister, Chaudhary, who also holds a position as an office-bearer within the Jamiyat Ulema, has been one of the most vocal critics of the Waqf law. He has warned of impending chaos and has even suggested that the government would take drastic steps, including shutting down Kolkata, to express their opposition to the law. TMC MLA Hamidur Rahman has openly declared that if the Waqf Bill is not repealed, the very foundation of our nation will be compromised, and the entire country will effectively be occupied by forces that seek to dismantle our cultural and religious identity. In these so-called peaceful protests, which in reality are anything but peaceful, people are being killed, public and private properties are being systematically destroyed, and Hindus are being deliberately singled out as targets. It is a stark reminder that in this multi-layered conflict, different communities poses different modes of operation. A community and its leaders that have honed violence as a skill, thereby perpetuating a cycle where brutality becomes almost second nature. However, life is not solely about these negative traits. There also exists the imperative to cultivate positive skills that are not just confined to survival in times of conflict, but are equally vital in adapting to the rapid transformations of the global job market. In today's world, where massive layoffs have swept across industries as a result of AI and automation, upgrading one's skills is not just a matter of economic necessity, but also one of survival. AI is growing exponentially, penetrating every aspect of our lives, from Tesla's technological breakthroughs to breakthroughs in space science, to cutting-edge innovations in sales and marketing. Without adapting and acquiring these new competencies, navigating the complexities of today's job market becomes an almost insurmountable challenge. As a responsible CEO who understands the imperatives of both political and professional evolution, I have organized an intensive 180-minute AI crash course designed to equip you with the skills that the future demands. Although this training is typically offered at a cost, the first 1,500 subscribers will have the opportunity to attend for free, a gesture that recognizes the urgency for all of us to adapt to the relentless pace of technological change. In this era, where survival is linked to the ability to harness the power of artificial intelligence, I use these tools extensively in my show to illustrate and analyze complex socio-political phenomena. And I highly recommend that you seize this opportunity to invest in your future by participating in this workshop. Over 10 lakh people have already benefited from this initiative, learning crucial skills such as resume writing, crafting professional emails, data analysis, understanding AI agents, and honing their personal branding strategies. I encourage you to book your free slot now and join the dedicated WhatsApp group for real-time updates. Because, as the old adage goes, those who adapt survive. And now, as we pivot back to the unfolding drama of our times, we cannot ignore the recurring pattern. Anti-Hindu violence in West Bengal comes like the monsoon every year. It happened after the 2019 election results, then again in 2021, once more in 2024. And now it has reared its ugly head under the guise and pretext of the Waqf Act. Some claim that Muslims are incensed because the bill was undemocratically imposed on them, a phrase that attempts to mask the underlying power dynamics and the strategic maneuvering by political forces intent on altering the demographic balance of the region. However, in a previous discourse, it was demonstrated with ample evidence that the bill was passed through democratic channels, a process that involved an unprecedented consultation, where a joint parliamentary committee engaged with Muslim organizations across 10 major cities and gathered no fewer than 97 lakh pieces of feedback before the final version of the bill was ratified. Both houses of parliament, in full adherence to constitutional procedures, gave their consent to the bill, cementing its legitimacy. Yet, despite the due democratic process, our so-called peaceful community and the political class find themselves incapable of digesting the reality of a law that seeks to correct imbalances without intent to target any particular group. The narrative that has emerged is steeped in paradox. A law passed democratically, yet its implementation is being obstructed by those who claim to represent the conscience of West Bengal. This is the grim reality in Murshidabad, where violence has escalated to such an extent that railway tracks are being blocked and government as well as private properties are being ruthlessly destroyed. In Murshidabad, Hindus are under relentless assault. Already, 3 individuals belonging to scheduled castes have lost their lives, a casualty count that serves as a harrowing symbol of communal strife. On this Ambedkar Jayanti, as we pay homage to a visionary who fought for the rights of the oppressed, I urge every viewer to press F in the comments, a symbolic gesture that echoes the sentiment of Jai Bhim, Jai Mem in recognition of those who have suffered and continue to suffer. The unfolding scenario in West Bengal bears an uncanny resemblance to the conditions once endured by Kashmiri Hindus, an environment where fear and uncertainty dictate daily existence, where communities live on the precipice of annihilation, and where the future seems shrouded in darkness. In districts like Murshidabad and Malda, over 400 Hindu families have been forcefully displaced, their lives uprooted by the systematic onslaught of communal violence. And the situation has deteriorated to such an extent that the High Court has had to intervene to restore a semblance of law and order. The tragedy is compounded by the fact that prominent leaders within the ruling party, rather than addressing the crisis, appear to be preoccupied with trivial pursuits. TMC MP Yusuf Pathan, for instance, posts images of himself sipping tea on Instagram even as his constituency burns, while another TMC leader, Derek O'Brien, shares light-hearted lunch pictures as if the calamity were a mere backdrop to his day. Meanwhile, as the inferno continues to rage, figures like Mahua Moitra seem detached from the grim reality on the ground, possibly indulging in cinematic escapism in the comfort of a home theater. One cannot help but wonder which TMC leader will chronicle the next cycle of destruction with a carefully curated social media post, and which will risk inciting further chaos with incendiary rhetoric. Political violence in West Bengal has become as routine and predictable as the frequent flops of a Bollywood actor whose time has long passed, an ongoing saga where Congress initiated a legacy of discord, communists escalated it into something far more lethal, and now TMC continues to perpetuate it with an almost institutionalized regularity. We are reminded of the dark events of 1971 when the Marichapi massacre saw over 1,000 Hindu refugees killed by communist forces, a historical episode that still haunts the collective memory of the community. In contemporary times, Mamata Banerjee, who lacks any radical ideology but adheres faithfully to the old Congress formula, has sought to consolidate Muslim votes while deliberately dividing Hindu votes, a strategy that has, since 2011, resulted in policies that seem designed to pamper one community at the expense of another. Over the years, a staggering number of 77 Muslim organizations have been incorporated into the official roster of other backward classes, OBC, while measures such as restricting the celebrations of Hindu festivals and vilifying the recitation of Jai Shri Ram have become part of a broader, systematic attempt to reconfigure the social and political landscape in a manner that disadvantages Hindus. Historic communal riots are not an anomaly in our nation's narrative. In fact, they have been an unfortunate constant, starting with the calamitous Direct Action Day in 1946, followed by a series of violent episodes that saw the communal fabric tear itself apart time and again. The pattern is unmistakable. Riots in Basirhat in 2017, post-election violence in 2019, 2021, and once again in 2024, each marked by a distinct surge in anti-Hindu aggression. In 2024, in Sandeshkali, we witnessed an especially brutal episode in which Hindu and backward-class women were assaulted, leaving families with no option but to flee their homes under the constant threat of violence. Disturbing accounts emerged from these regions, with women recounting how TMC goons, in their bid to instill fear, inspected homes under the pretext of finding beautiful bahus, and then, in a chilling display of disregard for human dignity, informed their husbands that they were now stripped of any rights or authority over these women. It is evident that Mamata's policy of minority appeasement has led to a scenario where Hindus are no longer deemed significant. Their votes, and indeed their very lives, appear to have become collateral in the grand design of a political strategy aimed at bolstering a Muslim vote bank. To maintain and further this agenda, it is increasingly clear that a permanent demographic change is not merely a byproduct, but an objective in itself. In this context, the open or covert facilitation of cross-border migration from Bangladesh has emerged as a critical element, as it subtly yet significantly alters the demographic matrix of regions such as Murshidabad, Malda, and Uttar Dinajpur. Presently, Murshidabad stands at a staggering 66% Muslim population, Malda at 51%, and Uttar Dinajpur at 50%, figures that bear little resemblance to the 2011 census, which had these areas marked at a significantly lower percentage of around 27% Muslim. Recent estimates even suggest that by 2025, the numbers may further climb to somewhere between 30 and 35%, an alarming prospect for those who have long valued the cultural heritage and historical presence of Hindu communities in these regions. This migration and ensuing demographic shift echo the experiences of numerous other parts of India, from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Kashmir to Kerala and Assam, where the erosion of a Hindu majority has often heralded the gradual disintegration of Hindu culture, the rise of separatism, and the eventual suffering of those who remain. Bengali Hindus now find themselves subjected to a chorus of threatening slogans, reminiscent of what Kashmiri Pandits heard decades ago, with chants like Raliv, Galiv, or Chaliv that force a grim choice, to convert or to flee. It is a painful irony that the land once celebrated for being the cradle of luminaries like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swami Vivekanand, and even the revolutionary figures who struggled against British colonial rule, is today witnessing an erosion of its very Hindu identity, a cultural dismemberment that seems to be advancing inexorably. At this critical juncture, the question arises, how can such a process be reversed? How can the tide of communal violence and demographic inversion be turned around before it irrevocably reshapes the social and political landscape of West Bengal? There are those who advocate for immediate, short-term solutions, deploying robust forces such as BSF and CRPF to control the violent outbreaks, invoking the Armed Forces Special Powers Act (AFSPA) in regions that resemble the volatile environments of Kashmir or the Northeast, implementing delimitation to redraw constituency boundaries in order to restore a semblance of Hindu majority representation, or even resorting to President's rule under Article 356 on the grounds that the state machinery is failing, overwhelmed by forces opposed to a centrally mandated law. Yet, each of these measures is fraught with peril and, at best, may offer only temporary relief. President's rule, for example, may indeed restore order momentarily, but it also runs the risk of strengthening Mamata Banerjee's narrative of victimhood, enabling her to capitalize on the sympathy of those who feel that a Hindi BJP is supposedly crushing Bengali culture. The only truly permanent solution, it is argued, lies in the fundamental change of the government. Law and order remain the exclusive domain of state governments. And while ad hoc measures might suppress the immediate threat, only a political shift, a realignment of power that safeguards the interests and lives of Hindus can offer a lasting remedy. Assam stands out as a model in this regard. Despite grappling with a demographic reality where Muslims now constitute around 40% of the population, a stark contrast to the mere 12% in 1951, Himanta Biswa Sarma managed to rise to power by leveraging a strategy built on clear, uncompromising principles. He embarked on a process of polarizing Hindu votes, uniting them under the broad banner of Hindutva, while simultaneously attempting to split the Muslim vote by drawing distinctions between indigenous groups like the Goria and Khilongia and those of Bangladeshi origin, referred to in pejorative terms as Miyas. His candid pronouncement that he did not seek the votes of the Jamiyas, accusing them of being communal and fundamentally opposed to Assamese culture, resonated powerfully with a significant segment of the population and carved out a blueprint for political success in volatile conditions. Bengali Hindus, it is argued, must come to a similar realization. Just as Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Haryana, and Assam coalesced under the banner of Hindutva to safeguard their very survival, so too must Bengal's Hindus awaken to the urgency of the situation before it is too late. The rising tide of anti-Hindu violence, the systematic targeting and displacement, the erosion of demographic configurations that have defined the cultural landscape for centuries, all demand a coordinated and resolute response. It is not merely a question of reacting to isolated incidents or transient periods of instability, but rather of mounting a long-term, strategic effort to reassert control, restore balance, and ultimately ensure that the legacy of Hindu civilization endures. Throughout history, we have witnessed time and again how moments of crisis can precipitate transformative change. This may be yet another such turning point. The future of West Bengal, with its storied past and vibrant cultural heritage, hangs in the balance. The call to action is as clear as it is urgent. The permanent solution for Bengal lies not in temporary measures or half-hearted reforms, but in a fundamental political transformation that realigns power and reaffirms the community's right to exist with dignity and strength. A new era, one defined by both the reclamation of cultural identity and the practical demands of modern governance, must take hold before the fires of communal strife consume everything in their path. For Bengali Hindus, this is a matter of existential urgency, an unequivocal decision between passively watching history repeat itself or actively charting a course for survival and resurgence. As the debates rage and passions run high, it is imperative to recall that the stakes are not confined to political maneuvering or electoral calculus alone. The very soul of Bengal, its centuries-old traditions, its language, its art, and its deep-rooted identity is imperiled. The struggle is both a political and cultural one, and its resolution will determine whether Bengal remains the vibrant, diverse tapestry it once was or succumbs to the fissures created by opportunistic forces that seek to dilute its essence. The narrative of Bengal is not merely one of communal conflict. It is also the story of a civilization, its triumphs, its defeats, its enduring resilience, and its continual quest for a just and harmonious society. As we observe the dramatic events unfolding in the wake of the Waqf Bill and the subsequent violence that has gripped West Bengal, we must also look inward and ask ourselves what role each one of us is willing to play in shaping the future. Can we, as citizens and members of a diverse society, rise above sectarian divides and work towards a society where every individual's rights are respected, irrespective of their religion or background? Or will we allow the forces of divisiveness to dictate our destiny, leading us into an abyss from which there may be no return? The answers to these questions are both deeply personal and broadly communal, and they compel us to reflect on the very principles that undergird our social contract as a nation. It is only by acknowledging the complex interplay of demographics, politics, and historical legacies that we can begin to forge a path forward, a path that, while fraught with challenges, also holds the promise of redemption and renewal. In the final analysis, the future of West Bengal and its people hinges upon a collective awakening, a recognition that the time for complacency has long since passed, and that only through decisive action and a re-energized political will can a safe and prosperous environment be reinstated for all. The story that unfolds today is not one confined to the annals of history. It is being written in real time in the streets of Kolkata, the villages of Murshidabad, and the hearts of millions across the state. And as the flames of discontent rise higher, it is incumbent upon us to confront the harsh realities and take responsibility for the trajectory that lies ahead. The question that remains, one that demands urgent and unflinching consideration, is this: can Bengal, a land that has given birth to great thinkers, poets, and revolutionaries, muster the resolve to reclaim its rightful place in the tapestry of Indian civilization before the fires of division obliterate what remains? The answer is not easily found in the rhetoric of the moment. It must be forged through a genuine commitment to reform, a willingness to endure the hardships that such transformation entails, and a collective determination to secure the future for generations to come. In the end, the challenge facing Bengal is not just a political dilemma. It is a moral and existential crisis that tests the very limits of our shared humanity, compelling us to choose between the forces of destruction and the promise of renewal. And as we stand at this critical juncture, I urge every listener, every citizen, and every stakeholder in this grand experiment called democracy to reflect deeply on the choices before us, to be vigilant in the face of rising tides of violence, and to never waver in the pursuit of a society where justice, dignity, and the rich heritage of our past may once again shine through.